Welcome to the Vibes Lab, your front row seat to the science behind VIA, the Vibes AI agentic platform making everyday brain health accessible to all. Every episode is designed to reveal insights that will enhance your cognitive health and well-being. Follow us to grab your lab key and experience limitless intelligence.
So, think of your nervous system right now like a smartphone,
Right.
but not, a fresh out-of-the-box smartphone. I'm talking about a phone that is physically hot in your hand.
Oh, yeah, like the battery is swelling?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Because it has, 50 different heavy-duty apps running in the background.
Right, just draining the power.
You've got your email constantly refreshing, social media algorithms just relentlessly pinging your dopamine receptors, 3 different navigation apps trying to route your day.
Yeah, and your biological battery is just hovering at a very stressed, 2%?
Barely 2%. And, the thing is, when you're in that state, you don't need another productivity app.
No, absolutely not.
What you desperately need is a hard reboot. And, well, that is exactly what we are exploring today in this deep dive.
I love that framing.
Yeah, we are looking at a project called Equalizer. It's subtitled The Neuroscience of Sound and Somatic Healing.
Right, by the group Vibes AI.
Exactly. And the peer-reviewed neurology that they're citing suggests that highly structured sound might actually be the software update our biology has been waiting for.
It's a fascinating premise, honestly, because if you think about it, we are currently asking our biological systems to do something completely unnatural.
Right. Like what, specifically?
Well, our systems evolved for occasional acute bursts of stress, like run from a predator.
Sure, short bursts.
Exactly. But now we're asking those same systems to handle a relentless 24/7 stream of abstract data.
Just constant pinging.
Yeah, and that state of chronic, low-grade emergency, it takes a profound physiological toll on us.
It really does.
And what makes this specific source material so compelling is that Equalizer isn't just, another ambient music playlist you throw on while you're answering emails.
Not just whale sounds.
Right, no. It is a rigorous translation of empirical neurological data into a somatic, meaning body-level experience.
Which, I'm so glad you brought up their process, because it's not like they just locked themselves in a studio and guessed at what sounded relaxing.
No, they were incredibly transparent.
Yeah, they put the receipts right on the table. They actually prototyped every single motif of this project live on their own show first.
Which is such a unique approach.
Right. They would bring a study to their audience, explain the science, design audio patterns based on that specific data, and then, this is the crazy part, they actually iterated the final mixes based on listener feedback.
And peer-reviewed pushback, too.
Yes, which is so rare.
It's incredibly rare.
Yeah.
I mean, they are essentially building a transparent bridge between the often murky world of wellness
Yeah.
and the strict rigor of clinical science.
Yeah, you really get to see the scaffolding, like how they actually turn a dense academic paper into a usable auditory tool.
Exactly.
So, if we're going to use sound to reboot this overheated smartphone of a nervous system, where do we even start? Because my instinct, honestly, is to immediately jump to optimizing my focus or hacking my productivity.
Oh, of course. Everyone wants to go straight to the biohacking.
Right. But looking at this material, they argue you have to start by establishing a physical baseline of safety first.
You absolutely do.
Yeah.
I mean, you literally cannot biohack your way out of a nervous system that feels profoundly unmoored.
Okay, that makes sense.
If your body believes it is in danger, your prefrontal cortex, which is the logical, productive part of your brain, is essentially locked out,
Just offline.
completely offline. You have to stabilize the underlying physiology before you can do anything else.
Okay, let's unpack this, because they approach this baseline stabilization through a concept called earthing or grounding, right?
Yes. The specific audio track they designed for this is called Vitamin G.
Vitamin G, right. Now, I understand the literal science of physically walking barefoot in the dirt, like actual grounding,
Sure.
but they are translating that into an audio experience using something called the Schumann resonance, which pulses at 7.83 hertz.
That's right.
So I need to push back on the premise here. I really do.
Go for it.
Can listening to a 7.83 hertz frequency in, a pair of AirPods, really replace the biological mechanism of physically touching the earth? Or is this just an aesthetic simulation to make you feel like you're outside?
You are entirely right to be skeptical. And honestly, if they were claiming this was a one-to-one replacement for walking barefoot in a forest, I would call nonsense immediately.
Right. It sounds a bit much.
But what's fascinating here is how they navigate that exact friction. They actually don't claim to replace the tactile transfer of electrons you get from physical grounding.
Okay, so what are they claiming?
Instead, they're using the Schumann resonance, which, by the way, is essentially the electromagnetic heartbeat of the Earth's atmosphere, created by global lightning strikes.
Which is wild to think about.
It is, but they're using it as a biomimetic tool.
Biomimetic meaning they are mimicking nature to trigger a biological response.
Precisely. And the magic number here is at 7.83 hertz. It just so happens that this exact frequency perfectly overlaps with human theta and alpha brainwave bands.
Wait, really? It perfectly overlaps.
Perfectly. If we look at an EE, an electroencephalogram that measures the electrical activity in your brain theta, and alpha waves dominate when you are in a state of deep relaxation.
Like light meditation.
Exactly. Or that weird lucid twilight state right before you fall asleep.
Oh, I love that state. So by embedding that specific subtle low-frequency pulse beneath field recordings and these like harmonic swells, they're trying to coax the brain into matching that rhythm.
Yes. It's a process called neural entrainment.
Neural entrainment.
Right. The sound basically acts as an invitation. It creates this low-noise baseline, pulling the autonomic nervous system out of fight or flight and pushing it toward parasympathetic dominance.
Which is the rest and digest state.
Exactly. And the studies they cite on physical grounding show that when the body hits this state, your day-to-night cortisol rhythms, which is your primary stress hormone, they actually resynchronize.
That's huge.
And furthermore, heart rate variability, or HRV, goes up.
Oh, let's actually define HRV for you, the listener, because it's a metric that gets thrown around a ton on wellness blogs.
It really does.
High heart rate variability doesn't mean your heart is beating wildly out of control. It means the time interval between your heartbeats is constantly, subtly shifting.
Right. It's about micro-adjustment.
Yeah, like a tennis player bouncing on the balls of their feet ready to pivot at a moment's notice. A high HRV means your nervous system is adaptable and resilient.
That is a great analogy. So vitamin G isn't tricking your body into thinking it's literally touching grass.
Right.
It's using acoustic entrainment to manufacture that same state of adaptable resilience, even if you are, say, trapped in a concrete office building.
Which is the perfect segue, because once we have that baseline stabilized, once the tennis player's on the balls of their feet and we aren't actively panicking, how do we actually use that calm to function in our modern data-heavy lives?
Right, moving from rest to action.
Exactly. We move from physical grounding to cognitive action. And the material zeroes in on how we make decisions, specifically focusing on a track called rational intelligence.
Decision-making is arguably where modern professionals suffer the most. I mean, we are just drowning in data.
Totally drowning.
And we usually try to logic our way through complex choices using only our prefrontal cortex. Like, we make these endless pros and cons lists.
Oh, I am so guilty of that, the pros and cons lists.
We all are. But by doing that, we're completely ignoring the massive amount of computational data being processed by the rest of our body.
And this is where we get into interoception and the gut-brain axis.
Yeah.
And I actually want to upgrade an analogy here, because people always talk about trusting your gut as if your body has this little dashboard warning light that just flashes red or green.
Like a check engine light.
Yeah. But based on the neurology they are citing here, the vagus nerve isn't a dashboard light. It is a massive, high-speed fiber optic cable.
It really is.
It is transmitting gigabytes of visceral data, like your microbiome status, your heart rhythms, lung expansion, from your internal organs straight up into your brain.
That is a much, much more accurate way to visualize it. In fact, roughly 80% of the nerve fibers in the vagus nerve are efferent.
Meaning what?
Meaning they travel up from the body to the brain, not the other way around.
Wow, 80%.
Yes. Your body is constantly sending this rich emotional and biological data stream to the brain. And interoception is simply your ability to consciously perceive those internal signals.
And they point to a specific fold deep inside the brain for this, right? The anterior insula.
Yes, the anterior insula. When researchers put subjects in an fMRI scanner and asked them to simply count their own heartbeats without taking their pulse, just feeling it, the anterior insula lights up.
That's amazing.
It is the brain's map of your visceral state. And the science shows that people with high interoceptive awareness, people whose anterior insula effectively reads that fiber optic data, they make measurably better, faster, intuitive decisions.
But here's the rub, right? In our daily lives, the cognitive noise, the overthinking, the anxiety, the 50 apps running in the background, it is so incredibly loud that it entirely drowns out that fiber optic signal.
You literally can't hear your own biology.
Right.
Which brings us to how this track, Irrational Intelligence, is actually architected, because it's structured as a three-part auditory journey to solve that exact problem.
Break that down for us.
So first, the audio is designed to just quiet that cognitive noise.
Establish the baseline again.
Exactly. Then the middle passage introduces these slow-building, theta-leaning pulses. And as we discussed earlier, theta waves lower the gating mechanism of the prefrontal cortex.
So it's getting the logical brain to kind of step aside.
Right. By acoustically guiding the brain into this slightly lowered state of inhibition, patterns and connections are allowed to emerge naturally.
It stops you from forcing the answer.
Precisely. And finally, the closing segment resolves in a way that helps the listener arrive at a physical, body-level yes or no.
That's so cool.
It completely reframes intuition. It's not some mystical superpower. It is a biological user interface that you can access through targeted acoustic design.
I can see this being an incredible tool for, like, a founder trying to pivot a company or a creative just staring at a really messy draft.
Oh, absolutely.
Because you aren't abandoning facts, you are just finally logging into a different, much older data set.
Well said.
But wait, I have to stop us right here, because what happens when the stress is already way too high?
The panic state.
Yeah. What if that fiber optic cable is essentially severed by an acute panic attack or just, the overwhelming grind of a terrible Tuesday? You can't just gently coax yourself into a decision. You need an emergency reset.
No, that is a crucial point, and that is exactly where the source material pivots to a track called pSphere.
The sanctuary track.
Right. They frame it as a sanctuary space. Now, this leans heavily into observational research on sound meditation, but the underlying biological mechanism they target is truly astounding. It all revolves around nitric oxide.
Okay, let's dive deep into this, because the nitric oxide mechanism blew my mind.
It's incredible.
When I think of a nervous system reset, I usually think of deep breathing. Just, take a deep breath. But the research here shows that the simple act of humming, specifically during a prolonged exhalation, drastically boosts the output of nasal nitric oxide.
It does.
So why is that molecule so important?
Well, nitric oxide is a potent vasodilator.
Meaning?
In biology, a vasodilator is a signaling molecule that tells the smooth muscle cells wrapped around your blood vessels to relax. So when those muscles relax, the blood vessels literally widen. It's like taking a kink out of a garden hose.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, this improves airflow, it regulates vascular tone, and it physically lowers blood pressure. It is such a critical mechanism for cardiovascular health that the discovery of how nitric oxide functions in the body actually won a Nobel Prize in the late 90s.
Wait, really? A Nobel Prize?
Yes, it's that significant.
So humming is basically manually pumping this Nobel Prize-winning molecule into your bloodstream.
Essentially, yes.
But here is my question about the audio track itself. The creators aren't getting on the microphone and instructing you to hum, right? Like you're in some clinical exercise.
No voiceovers.
They are just designing the music to make you want to hum. How does that actually work for a listener who's just sitting on their couch?
It is a masterclass in behavioral design. Because think about it. If an audio track suddenly commands you to breathe in for 4 seconds and hum for 6, that instantly introduces performance anxiety.
Oh, 100%. You start worrying if you're doing it right.
Exactly, which completely defeats the purpose of trying to relax. So instead, pSphere uses a low-frequency bed centered around 40 hertz, and it's layered with these breath-like auditory swells.
Just musical phrasing.
Right. The phrasing of the music naturally mimics the rhythm of a deep, relaxing exhale.
I see what you're saying. If you are listening to it, you just find your own breathing involuntarily syncing up with the swells of the track.
Yes. It subtly invites the listener to hum along because it just feels musically natural. And by doing so, you are secretly engaging that proven physiological mechanism.
You're boosting nitric oxide and forcing vasodilation.
Exactly. Without ever feeling like a patient in a clinic. And, I really want to highlight the rigor of the Vibes AI team here.
Oh, yeah, with the study citations.
Yes, because the observational studies they cite on sound meditation show massive drops in tension, anger, and fatigue. But they explicitly state They are citing this for mood improvements, not hormonal shifts.
Let's talk about that friction in the science. Why make that specific distinction? Like, why point out what it doesn't do?
Because the specific observational studies on sound meditation didn't use a control group, and they didn't measure blood cortisol levels.
Ah, I see.
So it's incredibly refreshing. They're not overpromising. They are looking at the data, admitting its limitations, and basically saying, look, we know it improves subjective mood, and we know the physics of humming produces nitric oxide. We're just combining those two truths creatively.
That intellectual honesty makes it so much easier to trust them as we move into the final and, frankly, the most staggering frontier of this project.
It really is a leap.
Because we've talked about mood, we've talked about stress, we've talked about cognitive decision-making. But with the title track of the album, Tremor Ease, we are moving out of the psychological realm entirely. We're moving into structural, physical motor control.
Right. This is where we look at whether highly structured audio can actually stabilize misfiring electrical signals in the physical body. It's a massive leap.
It's wild. And the track is directly inspired by a 12-week, double-blind, randomized trial focusing on Parkinson's disease.
Which is significant.
Yeah, for context for you listening, a double-blind randomized trial is the absolute gold standard of scientific research. Neither the patients nor the researchers know who is getting the real treatment and who is getting a placebo until the very end.
Exactly.
And they use the UPDRS, the third scale, which measures motor impairment.
And the findings were profound. The researchers used 40 hertz physioacoustic vibration and found measurable, statistically significant gains in tremor reduction, rigidity, and bradykinesia, which is the clinical term for slowness of movement.
Wow.
They also saw improvements in posture and gait.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting because the mechanism involves gamma waves.
Right.
Gamma waves are the fastest brain waves we have, and they're associated with high-level cognitive processing and motor function. And research in animal models has actually shown that exposing mice to 40 hertz stimulation can induce neural entrainment that helps clear amyloid plaques associated with Alzheimer's.
It's incredible research.
So the theory is that this specific frequency helps synchronize neural networks that are misfiring. But we have to address the massive caveat that the creators themselves point out.
Yes, the delivery mechanism.
Yes, because the patients in that gold standard Parkinson's trial were not just sitting in their living rooms wearing a pair of AirPods.
No, they were not.
They were physically sitting in full-body vibration therapy chairs. The 40 hertz frequency was being mechanically driven into their bones and tissues.
A huge difference.
It is the literal difference between sitting in an aggressive mechanical massage chair and just listening to an audio recording of a massage chair.
Right.
How can an audio track possibly replicate that physical impact?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, this is exactly why the open source prototyping nature of Equalizer is so crucial.
Yep, so.
Vibes AI states point blank, Tremor Ease is an accessible, artistic expression of these 40 hertz principles. It is not a proven standalone medical treatment.
They're managing expectations.
Exactly. But they don't stop there. They point to an entirely new wave of emerging research focusing on binaural beats and acoustically supported gamma band stimulation.
Okay, let's define binaural beats quickly for the listener. That's when you play a slightly different frequency in your left ear than your right ear, right? So if you play, say, 300 hertz in the left and 340 hertz in the right, your brain processes the mathematical difference and creates a phantom third beat pulsing at 40 hertz inside your head.
Exactly. You manufacture the beat internally. And this newer research suggests that sound itself delivered purely through the auditory cortex via the ears may hold far more promise for neural entrainment and motor function stabilization than we previously assumed.
Really? Just through the ears?
Yes. The auditory nerve has deep, profound connections to the motor centers of the brain. So to translate this into the track, Tremor Ease uses a 40 hertz-inspired rhythmic grid, but they wrap it in soothing musical spectral content.
So it doesn't sound like a medical alarm.
Right, it feels like a piece of art, not a sterile medical device. And they're actively committing to iterating the track as new peer-reviewed studies on acoustic gamma stimulation are published.
Man, it's a living, breathing project.
It really is.
So what does this all mean for us? When you zoom out and look at the Equalizer project as a whole, it's a remarkably coherent journey.
It flows logically.
It does. You start with the Schumann resonance and earthing to stabilize the baseline. You move to interoception and the vagus nerve fiber optic cable for intuitive decision making.
Right.
Then you utilize the biological hack of humming and nitric oxide vasodilation for an acute reset. And finally, you explore the frontier of 40 hertz gamma entrainment for physical motor control.
It completely reframes how we should view our auditory environment. And honestly, this raises an important question for you listening right now.
Oh, absolutely.
We live in a society where your attention is constantly commodified and genuine physical presence is rare. So how can you stop being a passive consumer of background noise and start using structured, intentionally designed sound as an active tool for self-regulation?
I love that question. And I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over today. Right now, wherever you are, take a second and just notice your breathing.
Yeah, just tune in.
Notice the hum of the refrigerator or the traffic outside or, the ping of that email notification you just got. We just spent the last 20 minutes exploring how carefully architected, scientifically structured sound can mimic the Earth's resonance, physically widen your blood vessels by prompting nitric oxide production, and potentially stabilize the electrical firing of your motor neurons.
That's incredibly powerful.
It is. So if intentional structured sound is powerful enough to dramatically alter your biology for the better, what is the chaotic, unstructured, relentless noise of your daily modern environment doing to your nervous system without you even realizing it?
That's a chilling thought.
It really is. It might just be time to force quit a few of those background apps, put on some headphones, and finally give your hardware the reboot it deserves.